and crushing blows and all that. It's also about the community. It's about the social dynamics that are part of what defined WoW Classic. We understand that that is a key part of the experience, and anything that might threaten to undermine those dynamics is something that we need to be very suspect about, and again, use authenticity as our guide. Even if it might seem minor at a glance, those small changes could have large ripple effects that would change the way players related to the world and to each other. Finally, we really had this 112 data that we'd been able to restore, and we viewed that as almost sacrosanct. That's everything from the world and the quest lines and the stories to individual player abilities, creature health, tuning, and so forth. There's some changes in code and architecture in the way the client responds to the server and vice versa, that if we let stand using the modern structure, might have caused this data to produce a different result when it comes to things like game balance. And we definitely worried that if we ever felt like the result was different in a way that compelled us to crack this open, it would very much be like opening Pandora's box. Because the second we start to substitute our modern judgment to solve problems from 12 years ago, we are deviating from our goal of a historical recreation of the game as it was and making something different. And that's something we want to avoid. So let me give you some examples of these problems as we dealt with them. A lot of these were really clear-cut. At the start of the project, we came up with a laundry list of literally dozens and dozens, over 100 items of ways in which the initial prototype that we had differed from the original experience. Some of these were just 5-minute, even 30-second conversations. Dungeon Finder. Of course we're not going to have Dungeon Finder or Group Finder in WoW Classic. I mean, that really speaks to the core social dynamic. Yes, it was inconvenient to stand in town spamming trade chat looking for a healer for 30 minutes. And yes, that meant that if you only had, some time before you headed to work in the morning, you couldn't realistically run a dungeon. And there are definitely advantages to being able to just instantly matchmake and teleport to the dungeon. But it also meant that when you found that healer, maybe you'd add them to your friends list. Maybe you'd have someone that you could rely on because it was super important to have friends, to have allies that you could join with, to not have to rely on spamming trade chat for 40 minutes. Or maybe when someone made a mistake and accidentally aggroed an extra mob and wiped the group, you probably weren't going to kick them out of the group for that mistake because it would have meant going back to town and spamming trade chat for 30 more minutes. So no Dungeon Finder. And yes, I know if you type /LFR in the current demo client, a window will pop up. That's not functional. It's a vestige. That's being removed. I think that's part of what Brian just alluded to. There's a lot of work still left to do, just because there is an element that you see in the experience that's playable on the floor or at home right now. Please don't take that to mean that that represents a final determination of what the game is going to look like. This is what I'm trying to lay out right now. Cross-realm grouping, again, no way, right? Realm identity, reputation, seeing the same people over and over again, knowing who the best geared warrior on your server is, those are important elements of the classic experience. That needs to be maintained. Flying, I'm not even going to dignify that. Let's skip ahead. Achievements. No. Again, achievements weren't even introduced until Wrath of the Lich King. So even if the infrastructure were there to support them code-wise, the data wouldn't be there. But again, this was a seemingly innocuous system, but it layered on an additional set of motivations to a world that didn't necessarily need them in its original form, that had its own goals to pursue. I mean, completionists were definitely a thing back in Classic. It's just you didn't get 10 achievement points for it. You just had the warm, fuzzy feelings and the satisfaction of 999 out of 1,000 exalted down the line and full green bars. And that was really what mattered back then. And another example, unified auction houses. Over the years, Alliance and Horde now share a single auction house no matter where you go. Not in Classic. In Classic, if you want to trade with the Alliance and you're a Horde player, well, head up to Everlook, Booty Bay,